What should you do if you're an adult who has received a late diagnosis of autism?
A stranger recently reached out to me through LinkedIn. After having received a clinical diagnosis for autism when he was in his 50s, he found himself wondering, what do I do now? I suggested that he get on with living his life. Since this answer was much too succinct, I had to elaborate. Since autism is a spectrum disorder, it follows that no two of us will ever be precisely alike. We all have varying strengths and weaknesses. While some of us may be quite sensitive to doing such things as going grocery shopping, others, including myself, greatly enjoy these experiences. In contrast, while I profoundly dislike the entire notion of hanging out with a group of friends, there are others on the spectrum who would gladly welcome such activities. Despite our differences, everyone who has been diagnosed with level 1 autism, which clinicians have described as high functioning, have several basic needs in common. I would describe these needs as 1. Acceptance. 2. The need to structure one's life. 3. The development of coping strategies. 4. Finding employment that is compatible with one's interest and abilities. And 5. Building a support network. 1. Acceptance means that you need to accept your reality. You are autistic. Having once been active on some of the Reddit subforums for autism, I know that there have been a wide variety of responses to having received a clinical diagnosis of autism. While some people, like me, may have been relieved to have finally found out why we were the way we were, others have ranted over how unfair life has been, and how very much they dislike the idea of being autistic. While I understand that an autism diagnosis may be upsetting to some people, no amount of ranting or tears will ever change this diagnosis. We are who we are. In order to move on and to become the best possible versions of ourselves, we must first accept and even embrace our autism. 2. The need to structure one's life. To many of us who are on the spectrum, the world is sometimes a confusing place. I myself am often confused by behaviors that contradict stated rules, laws, and policies. For example, as a former teacher with the Clark County School District, District Policy 5113_or 1118.1 says that students may not have more than 20 unexcused absences for the year. Students with excessive absences are supposed to be denied credit, and yet, last year I had students with 45 plus unexcused absences just for one semester who were being socially promoted at year's end even though they didn't have the academic prerequisites and cooking skills to succeed in a higher level culinary arts class. As a result of our lax standards, our school routinely had a 20% rate of truancy because there were no consequences for having violated the district's attendance policy. As a culinary arts teacher, I was then having to contend with students who didn't have the skills or knowledge to be in an advanced culinary class. Every teacher at my school had the same issues and concerns. Can you imagine the stress this caused for core academic teachers of subjects like English, math, history, and science, whose classes students had to pass in order to graduate? The failure to enforce basic district policy and to hold students accountable for their behavior is one of the many reasons why so many teachers have been leaving the teaching profession. At home, I keep myself organized by following set routines and schedules. For example, I have a basic routine for getting up. After getting up, I shower, dry myself off, brush my teeth, shave, and use the facilities. I then dress and take care of my cats. I clean or change the kitty litter. I empty and refill their water bowls. I add fresh kibble to their food bowls. After taking care of the cats, I make breakfast and will then eat breakfast with a beverage. On hot days, I like to eat breakfast with a glass of ice-cold juice. On cold days, I eat breakfast with a cup of coffee or some hot chocolate. After having finished my breakfast, I hand wash the plate, utensils, and glass, or coffee cup. Everything I wash is then placed upside down in a drying rack. I have routines and schedules for just about everything in my life. Tuesday is laundry day. Wednesday is vacuuming day. On Friday, I go grocery shopping. The use of schedules and routines provides structure and order in a world that can be quite confusing and chaotic. While most of us have no control over what happens in the world, we do have control over what happens within our respective homes. 3. Develop coping strategies. Since we live in a world that's dominated by both neurotypicals as well as extroverts, in order to be out and about in the world, many of us have had to develop coping strategies. Some of these strategies may include masking, which is the ability to pass for normal. At work, another strategy might be to come out as being autistic with human resources so as to request a reasonable workplace accommodation. One accommodation that I've used in the past has been to request that I be allowed to attend loud, noisy meetings through virtual attendance as opposed to physical attendance. If you work in an office, another reasonable accommodation would be to request a desk away from busy, high-traffic areas like being near a restroom, an elevator, the employee break room, or a water fountain. If you know what your autistic triggers are, be aware of your surroundings and your work schedule. Try to avoid being placed in a situation where your triggers are being repeatedly hit. Another way of fitting in is to mimic the greetings that are commonly used by others. When a neurotypical says, "Good morning, how are you?" I have found that unless this is a close personal friend, the person who offered the greeting was simply acknowledging your existence. The proper reply to this greeting would be to say, "Good morning, I'm fine. How are you?" Even if you aren't fine, there is usually no expectation on the part of the other person to hear a detailed listing about whatever your actual problems or concerns are. To my literal mindset, this exchange seems completely nonsensical, but then again, having long since learned that the ways of neurotypicals are sometimes strange and mysterious to those of us who have literal mindsets, there are a great many things about norm expectations that I've learned to ignore and to pass off as being necessary social constructs that one is simply expected to follow as a way of fitting in. If despite your best efforts, you are still having problems with anxiety, you could see a psychiatrist to get a prescription for anti-anxiety medication. 4. Find employment that is compatible with one's interest and abilities. Like most people, I have had to work for a living. Since one of my special interests has long been food, for many years I was a culinary arts teacher. I was fortunate to have had the opportunity to have been able to align a special interest with an occupation. Sadly, I had to leave this profession due to student behavior. In thinking about your situation, it might help to make a list, especially if you're a visual person. Start with thinking about what you want in a job. How much do you need to earn in order to keep a roof over your head and food on the table? What sort of special interests do you have? Can you think of any jobs that might align with your special interests? If not, think about what you can tolerate at work. Are you able to interact with others? Do you like a set daily routine, or do you prefer to face new challenges with each passing day? If you can't find a job that aligns with your special interest, you have several choices. For example, you could retrain to develop the qualifications needed to get a job. There are many online schools that offer a wide variety of degree programs. There are also employers who offer paid job training programs. Some restaurant chains like Bob Evans offer paid on-site 13-week training programs for anyone who wants to become an assistant manager. Walmart has a good track record for promoting within their company. With very rare exceptions, all managers at Walmart got their start as associates. Another thing you could do would be to start your own virtual business and to become self-employed. You could, for example, become a notary. You could also run a virtual business by selling retail goods or items that you've made online. If all else fails, you could always look for a job that has minimum stressors. Although I would like to produce YouTube videos, I could work as a video editor, freelance writer, an instructional designer, or perhaps a human resources generalist. My nature and belief systems would make it challenging for me to be in a retail business because I'm not a great believer in selling things to people who might not need these items. I am especially opposed to the idea of selling things to people who really can't afford to buy them. Build a support network. A support network is a social network that you may sometimes use whenever you're feeling particularly stressed out. This network could include members of your family, friends, church members if you're religious, and even trusted colleagues at work. In general, the more people you have in your network, the more likely you'll find support whenever you have a personal crisis. Sadly, the converse is also true. If you only have a few people in your network, depending upon how many times you come running to them with a personal issue, there could come a time when you have burned them out and they will then be unable or unwilling to hear about whatever it is that is troubling you. Another source of support would be to have a therapist. A therapist has to listen to you because that's their job. Friends and family have no such requirement. Although most therapy used to be held face-to-face, in our post-COVID world, a lot of therapists are now able to meet with you online. In summary, the harsh reality is that autism is a neurological disorder for which there is no known cure. Those of us who are on the spectrum will always be autistic. Having said this, if you have a clinical diagnosis for level 1 autism as I do, the situation is not hopeless. We are, in theory, able to lead independent lives with minimal, if any, support. Since knowledge is power, knowing why you are, the way you are, should be useful in developing workarounds to deal with this condition. According to the National Institute of Health, as many as 44% of us have above-average intelligence quotients. Many of us, including yours truly, have the ability to hyper-focus for extended periods. When we're in the zone, we are completely focused on the project at hand and can literally spend hours on a given task. When I am in the zone, time ceases to have any meaning for me. I don't feel hunger or thirst nor warmth or cold. Coming out of this focus is another thing entirely, because when I come back into myself, I am often acutely aware of being fatigued, having muscle aches, being overly warm or quite cold, and being hungry, thirsty, and having an acute need to answer the call of nature. All of these issues tend to metaphorically body slam me simultaneously, which can be quite disconcerting. 1 in 10 of us have some degree of savant skills. An estimated 2% of us, not including me, have eidetic or photographic memories. As the old adage goes, you play the hand that you're dealt. If you think of the rest of your life as a blank canvas, having just received a clinical diagnosis of autism, how will you fill this life moving forward? Are you going to give in to despair, or will you rise to the challenge, taking advantage of your strengths, while compensating for your weaknesses? Your life is what you make of it. Choose wisely.
If you found this video interesting and would like to support this channel, please click on the like and subscribe buttons.